Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 22nd episode of The Lab. Sitting with you, as always, is Brendan Wierig, Alex Trotter, and Lou Follenkamp. We hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode. Today what we're going to talk a little bit about today is just in-season weightlifting. We know that sometimes it can be hard to get into the gym and, mix up with, school, homework, and practice. But that's why we have Alex and Brandon here to kind of talk to you guys a little bit about the importance of in-season weightlifting and maybe a few different things to monitor so you don't overdo it as well. So I'll kind of turn it over to them in regards to starting off on the importance of in-season weightlifting.
Well, you start breaking the scientific portion of it down as you start losing strength after 30 days. You start losing muscle endurance after 14 to 15 days, and then you start losing max speed after 7 days. So if you don't do max speed after a week, it's over. Most preseasons are like a month long, so if you haven't touched a weight through preseason, by the time season starts, you're already starting to see the detraining effect, and then usually seasons go from spring's always a little short. We're in spring season right now, so that might only be like a month and a half long season. But by the time you get to the postseason, you're already anywhere from probably 10 to 15% weaker than what you started at before preseason started.
So if that athlete were to not touch any weights throughout preseason to the end of the season, the regular season, they would actually be losing some of the gains that they had progressed.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So hearing that, I hope some of you guys listening take that to heart about, you want to work very hard in the off season, but maintaining in season is just as important. Like Brandon said, the loss of speed, the loss of power, loss of strength. But then how does that translate over into their performance?
That's when you're trying to ask your body to recruit a lot of power, and then it's used to being this kind of well-oiled machine, and now all of a sudden you're trying to ask it to do the same things you were before.
But you're not refilling it with fluids and putting gas in the car and stuff like that.
You just keep getting weaker, and then that's when you're going to start seeing. You either see injuries early in the season because of a bad off season, or you see injuries late in the season because of a bad in season.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Because of detraining, essentially. You just keep running your body into the ground, so to speak, without any guidance through it.
Makes sense.
But it only takes 1 or 2 times a week. Once a week goes a long way.
Yeah.
If you can just come in once a week, 25, 30 minutes after a practice or before school, that goes a long way. It's enough that we can kind of activate the nervous system, kind of get it under, depending on what your week is that day. If we can get under maybe an 80% percentage for 2 or 3 reps.
Yep.
And then we're going on to some accessory stuff.
Yeah.
It's really...
Yeah, I think that's a huge misconception with potentially even a lot of the kids as well, is they think that our off-season programming and stuff like that is the same as what it is in season, and that's as far from the truth as you can get it. It's our in season is way more coach monitored, if you will.
Yeah.
It's set up out of our head as we are seeing you that day. That's why we ask questions of what'd you run? What events did you do? How long was the meet? Did you eat before? How much water did you drink? All those plays a role into us creating a program in our head to give to the athlete. It's not we're not beating them down and punishing them for not lifting during the season. It's quite the opposite.
Yeah, you'll see a huge reduce in volume, but your intensity will kind of still stay the same.
Yeah.
So we had our basketball guys that came in last week. They came in on a Monday. Final Four state championship game was on a Friday. They came in, I think, all together was 20 reps.
Yep.
25 reps total, their whole workout.
Mm-hmm.
So that's including the main lift. That's including the accessory.
Yep.
So it's really a condensed...
There's
not a
condensed version.
Sometimes the warm-up takes just as long as the lift.
Yeah.
So now how frequent, let's say a perfect world, they're maintaining homework, they're maintaining grades, what would be the perfect frequency of them coming in during the regular season in a week?
Depends on the sport.
Yeah, you got sometimes you got baseball, softball that are playing 4 or 5 times a week, double headers.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll have 3 track meets in a week. So ideally, I would like to say 2.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, if we're going like spring,
Yeah.
I'm saying like 2 probably at the max. But see, that all depends too on like when their games are falling and when their double headers are falling. So we're the first ones to recommend, hey, come in on Wednesday because you had a game Monday, you have another game on Friday. So let's just split the difference. We'll keep you active.
Yeah. I actually had a phone call with one of the local track coaches last night, like send me your schedule. If I have an opportunity, she has a track meet on Wednesday, and I'm working with her on Tuesday. If that's not an important meet, that's going to be a workout meet.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna work through that meet. Maybe kind of focus on the next meet as maybe a big invitational.
Yeah.
So kind of like laying all these kids' schedules out, and you got 40, 50 some athletes, and everybody's got different schedules. It's kind of hard to. That's where you got to kind of get. It's like the art side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's going to be more individualized towards each athlete.
Yeah. And then one kid might have a hamstring issue. One kid might be having a shoulder problem because he's a pitcher.
Yeah.
So it's
Their
got to be
calves are
tailored
getting
down.
tight, so it's just a lot of recovery stuff, a lot of like active stretches.
Yeah. Especially track athletes, they go from wearing, their Brooks to
Yeah.
a spike that's got no.
No, nothing.
Yeah, so they're just
Yeah.
their foots and calves and scoliosis and all that stuff aren't used to that kind of minimal cushion.
Yeah.
So
Kind of getting back into the swing of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
shin splints are starting to pick back up, and because some of these coaches don't know how to do running volume, and it's like first practice
2200s.
Yeah,
All under 20 seconds. If you don't, you restart.
yeah,
Or you run, 200s back to back, and then that's your 400 time.
Oh God. So
Don't
going.
know who we're talking about.
So if you're going to be watching that athlete as they're kind of going through their in season, their lifting, what is something that they could maybe look into, or maybe they're overdoing it with their in season weightlifting?
a lot of it's just kind of like the old signs we talked about before, with like not quite the overtraining, but the overreaching. Kind of that same exact feel. The loads, like the 80% that we're trying to hit for almost like a speed rep, does that feel heavier than normal? They dehydrated, is end of the school year's coming up, so they kind of starting to worry about grades. They kind of mentally checked in, things like that.
Yeah. And like it's our job as coaches too, is like we're constantly monitoring their bar velocity. So like when they're lifting like sub-maximal weight and it's starting to move at a 0.2, 0.4 like meters per second, just like off our eye, then it's like, oh, this is turning more into a max day, and that's not what is needed. So like like I have no problem like reaching out and taking the barbell and like racking it for them. It's like, nope, we're moving on. Like it's just something that quick. But we are blessed with like a lot of kids that are just like, okay, like cool, and then they move straight into it. They don't even second guess it.
Okay. How do you guys go about explaining to parents the importance of in-season weightlifting?
I wrote a post about this like 4 or 5 years ago, where I drew a chart, and basically it was you start here at year one. It's like a lot of them, like maybe a freshman. So like you start at year one, and you go up through an off-season peak, and then during season you don't train, so you go back down. And then year 2 starts, and you're in the off-season, you go back up, maybe halfway higher than what you was freshman year. The sophomore year, you go back down. And it's kind of like this up and down ladder, because we'll spend the first 4 or 5 months, 2 to 3 months maybe, of them getting back in the season, just trying to get them back to where they were before the season started.
Yeah.
To where we might, year 1 goes up, and then they train in season, it might just stay flat, to where we didn't lose anything.
Which is awesome.
Yeah,
like that's the most ideal thing that you
and
can
then
ask
you just
for.
build up, and then it's flat, and then now you have this huge incline of performance on this chart, to where after a while, if you start hitting 80, 85% for like some quick, fast reps, that 1 rep max will increase. Like we had a girl hit, she had a PR. No, it was Terrence. He had a PR. We've just been doing training blocks, like speed work.
Yeah.
Haven't really done any lifting. He had a 20-pound PR.
Yeah.
Just like that, and he's would be in his indoor track season. They're just finishing up an indoor track season right now.
Yeah. And I mean, to Terrence's like credit, is like he trains at the intensity that you ask him to.
Yeah.
He's very much like, if you tell him like 0 to 100 on this, like you need to do that.
Yeah.
And he's very much like that, very responsive. And that's going to show once he gets to the indoor season next year. It's not really surprising to us, like in a weird way, when we have kids circle back around in track and their first meet is very much like the equivalent, or they're beating their previous PR at the end of the season from the year prior.
Yeah.
And that's like the goal. That's the design. Is like you keep stacking that. You want your ceiling from the year before to be your new floor. So now you got to go up another floor.
A lot of people don't realize that you can just do speed waves and increase the overall horse production.
Yeah, you can't move a heavy object slow. You have to move it fast in order for it to be successful. So that's where our speed days come in. We do a great job as well of we look at their game days as their max effort days when it comes to like the conjugate program. So then now they're not doing max effort days like we talked about. It's all sub-maximal weight and moving at a bar velocity of like 0.8. Unless we need to like have them be more explosive, as in like our sprinters, baseball, softball, because they're running bases. Then we'll lower that bar speed or that bar percentage and have them go like a 0.2 meters per second. That's fast. Like it almost doesn't even feel like weight to them at that point.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea.
Mm-hmm. I'll even switch. Like I'll have like the main part would be the speed portion, and then the accessories. So like maybe your incline dumbbell bench press, or maybe a landmine shoulder press. That'll be your heavy work.
Yep.
And you get two sets of 6. Like you're gonna work up to two heavy sets of 6, and that'll be your strength stuff. A lot of these kids have a problem, like they'll grab 20s and their heavy work is like 40 or 45s, but they'll grab 20s and think that's like set 1. Like, no, that's still warm up. I want 2 working sets of these heavy 6 reps, and that'll be like the strength portion. Whether it be unilateral or dumbbell work or single leg skater squats, whatever it may be, just so that their body's still having that kind of that strain, but the overall weight on the nervous system isn't nearly as high.
Yeah.
The recovery will be a lot faster. And then you got to start working into, there's a lot of exercises that I kind of get away from whenever I'm doing in-season work. Anything that's like heavy eccentric. Like I'll even have like a heavy 10-yard sled push will be your main heavy leg day exercise. There's
it's all concentric.
No eccentric. I kind of get rid of a traditional Bulgarian split squat. I might do call a depth drop free fall into the hole, and then let's work on exploding up. And then a couple other things I get rid of. I throw in a lot of more hip thrusters, just because it's pretty easy to just bring that weight if you're using a barbell to the floor, and let's work on just driving up. And then,
so you wouldn't necessarily avoid like the complex movements, but you're going to maybe shift where the effort is done between like concentric and eccentrics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way less strenuous on the body. Soreness isn't there.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of these kids, parents want to look at. They don't want to see their kid sore after, going into a game or whatever.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So then when you guys are kind of going through the season, you have that athlete who is going through the in-season weightlifting and they're doing good. What do you guys do when all of a sudden you start seeing their performance on the field tank? How have you guys been monitoring that and like modifying that? So like, let's say you had someone who they were doing the in-season weightlifting. They want to keep training, but now you're starting to see like maybe their energy's not as great. Maybe they're a little bit more fatigued overall, and things are not necessarily, let's just say on the court, they're not doing so hot.
Yeah.
There's other factors affecting them. How do you guys tell them maybe we need to address some other things first before we keep doing this?
Just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just having a conversation. A lot of the kids, they respond better if they're treated as if like they are adults and they can make their own decisions too. In a sense, not all of them, but you just have to have like those tough conversations with them. Like why are you feeling like this? Are you staying up late? Not sleeping enough or not eating enough, like what's going on in your mind? You got like boy-girl trouble, like that kind of stuff.
A lot of it's just asking them how the person is before the athlete is.
Yep.
Human first.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first thing I always ask kids, how was school? What'd you do
Yeah.
at school today? Mm-hmm. I don't give a shit what you did at track practice. I'll ask that in a little bit.
Yeah.
How are you doing first?
Yeah.
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 Makes sense.
Especially if you're reading their body language and they're like down, shoulders drooped, head down.
And right now it's kind of that part where it's like JV varsity is kind of being handed out. So like you got a kid that maybe wanted to be expected to be on varsity. It kind of made it started out on the JV team. That's kind of in that part of the year right now too. So,
or they set their expectations too high for themselves right out of the gate. So then, like, you kind of got to reel it back in. It's like, we don't need you to be peaked at the beginning of the season. We need you to be peaked as you're going into the postseason.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah, which is some of these workouts are still pretty tough. I mean, scrimmages aren't really mattering right now.
Yeah.
Like I said, we'll pick and choose the games or the meets that we need to be dialed in for, and if there's a game or a meet that we can kind of work through, if you're like at a dual meet or a quad meet or whatever it may be, or you just got, I mean, a not so good team coming up on the list.
Yeah.
So
this is your training day.
Yeah.
And it's just like having them, like all on the same page too. It's not like we're just saying like, oh, this is how it's going to be, and like you can't say you don't have an opinion on it. Like they definitely get an opinion. Like at the end of the day, it's their performance, it's their body. So we just need to be like an extension of that.
Yeah, we try to lay it out. Like this is where we're at now. Mm-hmm. This is what we're going to do through. This is where I want you to finish at, and then it's subject to change.
Yeah.
Like if something happens or goes wrong, or if it's not working, we'll make the quick switch. But it's always here's a game plan. But if we need to make adjustments, we'll.
Yeah.
Just so they can kind of see, and the parents can kind of see how we're going to teeter this.
Yeah. It's good to kind of have that line of communication at all times, throughout. Especially with, parents are one thing, but, especially with the athlete.
Yeah.
Especially with the athlete. No. So we hope you guys enjoyed this little discussion on in-season weightlifting. So if you guys are ever, on the fence about where you want to put your efforts and, what are you willing to sacrifice in season, in-season weightlifting is definitely something that you can use to maintain your progressions. Just overall make you a better athlete, maintain your gains. But we will see you guys next time.